Our final speaker tonight has come a long way to be with here this evening. As a Chief Councillor with the Haisla First Nation, he catalyzed one of the largest private infrastructure projects in Canadian history with liquid natural gas. He has revolutionized the lives of the young people and opened the doors for economic self-reliance and personal achievement. He has worked with First Nation Indian bands across northern British Columbia so they can take control of their own destinies and give their young people hope for a dignified and prosperous future. Please welcome Ellis Ross.
Good evening. Every presentation here was great, and I could see myself and my history in every one of those presentations, whether you were talking about housing or addictions. And my wife here is with us tonight. Her name is Tracy, and we both come from pretty humble beginnings, very poor on reserve, in a very poor reserve, and we still live there today with our children and grandchildren. Today's different. It's a turnaround. We don't talk about poverty anymore. We don't talk about the Indian Act. We don't talk about welfare. We don't talk about any of that. Because basically, over the span of 10 years, we went from one of the poorest First Nations of BC to one of the wealthiest. And wealth meaning money, land, infrastructure, everything everybody else takes for granted in Canada. But in all those years of celebrations, we'd celebrate a community celebration every time we accomplished something, because it meant us being included in the economy and society of BC. But at every celebration, I think, what am I doing here? There's got to be a larger reason why I'm doing what I'm doing. It's great that we're getting all the success, but at the end of the day, there's got to be a higher cause. Because at the end of the day, I'm not a politician. I never even wanted to be a leader. I just kind of stumbled into it by accident. So over the years, I've tried to think about the higher cause. And tonight's the first opportunity to kind of present what I think about why I do what I do. So you'll be the first to hear my thoughts on this. And forgive me, but I had to write this down because it's hard to condense this into 7 minutes, given the entire history of my band from 2004 to today. As a First Nations leader, it took me a while to realize that the narrative I followed wasn't going to achieve what I wanted for my people. The words used to describe our state of dependence and poverty were the Indian Act, paternalism, and closing the standard of living gap. These were issues that could be resolved given bold leadership and visionary decision-making. Today, these words have been replaced with political words that have no realistic solutions. Words like colonialism, unceded, or now the heavily politicized word reconciliation. Words that are not actionable are just words. For myself, I slowly changed my approach after listening to my people who wanted to end our dependence for themselves and for their kids, end poverty, and wanted the ability to address our own issues on our own terms. It was summarized by my late Uncle Heber Maitland, who simply said, "We want a share and a say." The courts of Canada agreed with this concept when laying out the responsibility of the Crown when dealing with infringements of Aboriginal rights and title, which is actually included in the Constitution of Canada. Make no mistake, changing our approach is what brought success to my band and to our people. Is money a measurement? Yes, money is a measurement of that success, but it is only one component of a long-term solution. Because in the Indian Act world, money is a measurement because most First Nations have no control over the money that comes from Ottawa, hence the word dependence. For myself, I had to depart from my anti-resource development, anti-government, and yes, my anti-white views. because that's what I was taught growing up. As a First Nations leader, I looked in the mirror and realized that to change our outcomes, I had to admit that our governance system was not designed to achieve success. It was not designed to manage success. That our governance system was designed to deal with the Indian Act instead of how to deal with government and industry. Many leaders characterize this as managing poverty and how they're tired of it. I also realized that we needed full transparency and accountability if we wanted to take our people down a new path. And that successful outcomes often meant concession. 100% winning meant everybody loses at the end of the day. And that to change the status quo, we had to clearly define what it is, what we wanted, and then make determined decisions to achieve what we wanted. Two very different processes, painful to boot, because you're trying to change mentalities and narratives that are deeply ingrained. Over the years, I came to understand this at a higher level. So I decided and came to understand that if we want a strong society, we need strong individuals and strong communities under the umbrella of a strong province and a strong country, and vice versa for that matter. This is what I strive for, even more so today, because that's all connected. We're all connected. In some form or fashion, we've all experienced what I'm talking about here. Whether we're talking about addictions, poverty. If we haven't done it, our ancestors did it. Today, if I was to guess at how close my band was come to achieving these independence goals on a scale of 1 to 10, I'd say we'd score a 7. And for our First Nations community, I'm incredibly proud of that. I'm especially proud of that because I was taught to be a hardworking, independent, honest person by parents who went to residential school. And no, they were not taken. They were sent by their parents, mainly because of poverty issues. Which takes us to what I see in BC today. In terms of where our society is going and where our province is heading. And our apathy, our indifference, or dare I say our ignorance, is leading us to where I was before, back in 2004, which is the wretched state of dependence. I can't help but observe that as a province, we are dependent on other jurisdictions for manufacturing or fuels. What's worse is, I see us repressing our economy. And it's inevitable that we become dependent on government programs, and our provincial government then becomes more dependent on federal monies. And as I said before in my previous experience, it doesn't work. We're not there yet as a province, but we're on our way. We proved in Kitimat Village and the region that you can solve dependency, but it takes a tremendous amount of blood, sweat, and tears. The wounds I have in trying to bring change are still fresh, but it was worth it when I look at the success of people and communities and the strength of our society, Aboriginal and non-Aboriginal alike. Is everything perfect? Of course not. There's no such thing as perfection, but it's a 180-degree turnaround from where we were 10 years ago. And ultimately, I don't want BC to end up where I came from. And that is why I still do what I do. Thank you.